For thousands of years, humanity carried a single promise. Not revenge. Not conquest. A promise that one day, they would go home. The galaxy believed humans had always been wanderers. Generations of diplomats, merchants, explorers, and soldiers knew humanity only as a civilization born among enormous arc fleets drifting between stars. Few questioned the stories. Fewer still searched for the truth. The truth had been hidden behind sealed archives, protected by laws older than most civilizations. Only the High Council remembered everything. Only they knew that humanity had once possessed a beautiful blue world beneath a golden sun. A world erased from history. The Grand Galactic Assembly fell silent as Supreme Archivist Elias Rowan stepped onto the central platform. Representatives from more than 200 civilizations watched him carefully. No one expected an apology. No one expected a declaration of war. Instead, Rowan placed a small crystal container onto the podium. Inside rested a handful of dark gray dust. He looked around the chamber before speaking. "This," he said quietly, "is all that remained of our home." The room remained silent. Many delegates assumed it was symbolic. It wasn't. Our ancestors collected these ashes during the final evacuation nearly 11,000 years ago. A ripple spread across the chamber. Even species incapable of expressing emotion understood the weight behind those words. The world was not destroyed by natural disaster. Rowan activated the enormous holographic display above him. Ancient star maps appeared. Then military formations. Then bombardment trajectories. Finally, the insignia of an empire that no longer existed. The Dominion of Kairos. Several historians gasped. The Kairos Dominion had disappeared thousands of years earlier. Until this moment, no one knew why. Rowan continued calmly. Our records were incomplete for centuries. We did not seek revenge because revenge without certainty creates endless wars. We searched. For 10,000 years, we searched. Every archaeological expedition. Every abandoned listening station. Every forgotten military archive. Every encrypted transmission recovered from drifting satellites. Piece by piece. History returned. The evidence became impossible to deny. The Dominion had not attacked Earth for resources. They had not feared humanity's military. They had destroyed the planet because humanity refused to surrender scientific discoveries capable of changing interstellar travel forever. One decision. One refusal. One world burned. Across the chamber, Chancellor Serac of the Alliance shifted uncomfortably. "So?" he asked carefully. "The Dominion no longer exists. What purpose does this revelation serve?" Rowan looked directly at him. "The Dominion is gone. But those who inherited its wealth are not." The chamber froze. New symbols appeared on the hologram. The Stellar Compact. One of the wealthiest coalitions in known space. Their oldest industrial worlds. Their largest energy facilities. Even several cultural monuments. Had all been constructed using technology and resources seized after Earth's destruction. Legally. According to records created by the Dominion. Illegally. According to the evidence humanity had just uncovered. No one spoke. Admiral Mara Solis entered the chamber from a side entrance. Unlike Rowan's formal robes, she wore the black uniform of the human expeditionary fleet. Her silver shoulder insignia reflected the chamber lights. She stopped beside the podium. "The Human Council has reached a unanimous decision." Her voice remained steady. "We seek no genocide. We seek no occupation. We seek no endless war." A few delegates relaxed. Then she continued. "But history carries debts. And debts must be paid." Screens throughout the assembly activated simultaneously. Every representative received identical encrypted files. Construction records. Military orders. Planetary surveys. Financial transfers. Evacuation logs. Personal journals. Millions of documents. Every claim supported. Every accusation documented. Nothing exaggerated. Nothing hidden. The evidence spoke louder than anger ever could. Hours passed. Experts from dozens of civilizations verified the records independently. Every conclusion matched. Every date aligned. Every forensic scan confirmed authenticity. The silence inside the assembly became heavier with each passing minute. Finally, the oldest judge in the chamber spoke. If these records are genuine, then history has been living inside a lie. Rowan nodded. Yes. Far beyond the assembly. Hidden inside a quiet stellar system. The human expeditionary fleet waited. Not hundreds of ships. Thousands. Massive carriers. Engineering vessels. Terraforming platforms. Hospital ships. Research stations. Supply convoys stretching millions of kilometers. This was not an invasion force. It was something stranger. An entire civilization preparing for a journey home. Deep inside the flagship Resolute Dawn, Admiral Solis stood before a sealed chamber. The door required 3 separate biometric confirmations. After the final lock disengaged, the vault opened. Inside rested a transparent sphere. Within it floated a single living plant. Small. Fragile. Green. The last surviving descendant of a species that had once covered Earth's forests. The Admiral smiled for the first time in weeks. "We're almost there," she whispered. "You waited 11,000 years. You won't have to wait much longer." The little plant swayed gently beneath artificial sunlight. Outside, thousands of engines ignited together. For the first time in countless generations, humanity wasn't searching for home. They knew exactly where it was. And they were finally going back. The announcement spread across the galaxy faster than any fleet could travel. Some called humanity's evidence impossible. Others called it undeniable. Within days, every major government had assembled emergency councils. Historians compared forgotten records. Artificial intelligences sifted through millennia-old archives. Independent investigators reached the same conclusion over and over again. Humanity had told the truth. Their homeworld had not vanished through natural catastrophe. It had been erased by war. And the galaxy had unknowingly built part of its prosperity on the ruins that followed. Aboard the flagship Resolute Dawn, Admiral Mara Solis ignored the political storm. None of it changed the mission. The fleet was already moving. Thousands of vessels glided through folded space in perfect formation. Massive arc ships carried millions of civilians. Engineering platforms towed orbital factories. Medical ships prepared emergency habitats, while scientific vessels mapped every gravitational fluctuation along the route. It looked less like a navy, and more like an entire civilization crossing the stars together. Captain Noah Kieran stood on the observation deck, watching blue streams of folded space ripple across the forward view. He had spent his entire life aboard starships. His parents had been born in orbit. His grandparents had never seen a planet. Everything he knew. Schools, parks, rivers, even birds, had existed inside carefully designed habitats. Yet today, for the first time, he was traveling toward a place no simulation could truly recreate. Earth. The word itself felt unreal. Elsewhere in the fleet, Dr. Eliana Voss entered the biological preservation vault. Thousands of transparent chambers stretched before her. Each contained life. Seeds. Microorganisms. Insects. Coral. Trees. Flowers. Entire ecosystems preserved across thousands of years. Every species had survived because generation after generation refused to let them disappear. She gently touched one of the storage cylinders. Inside rested the seeds of an ancient oak tree. "They're going home," she whispered. Not everyone welcomed humanity's return. In the capital system of the Stellar Compact, emergency meetings continued without pause. Director Havok stared at the intelligence report projected above the conference table. "They're bringing orbital foundries. They're bringing atmospheric processors. They're bringing civilian populations." One advisor frowned. "That doesn't sound like an invasion." "No," Havok answered quietly. "It sounds permanent." Another official spoke. "If they reclaim Earth, what happens to our legal claim?" Silence answered the question. Everyone in the room already knew. There wasn't one. The Compact's military proposed sending defensive fleets. Economists rejected the idea immediately. Humanity had already released enough historical evidence that attacking them now would unite half the galaxy against the Compact. For the first time in centuries, power offered no solution. 3 weeks later, the human expeditionary fleet emerged from folded space. No cheers erupted. No celebrations echoed across the bridges. Instead, every screen filled with a single image. A distant yellow star. Humanity's sun. It looked ordinary. Just another star among billions. Yet across thousands of ships, conversations stopped. Crew members simply stared. Some smiled through tears. Others quietly held the hands of family members. Children looked confused. To them, it was only a star. To their parents, it was history. As the fleet moved closer, automated probes raced ahead. The first reports arrived within hours. Solar radiation, stable. Planetary orbit, unchanged. Lunar companion, intact. Atmospheric recovery, partial. Life signatures, confirmed. Every report drew deeper silence. Earth had survived. Scarred beyond imagination. But alive. Captain Kieran received permission to join the first orbital survey. His shuttle drifted toward the blue-gray planet. From orbit, the wounds were obvious. Entire continents bore immense impact scars. Ancient oceans had retreated from former coastlines. Mountain ranges showed signs of unimaginable bombardment. Yet something else appeared among the devastation. Color. Tiny patches of green spread across valleys and river systems. Life had refused to surrender. Dr. Voss analyzed the orbital scans. The ecosystem rebuilt itself. She could barely believe the numbers. Slowly. Painfully. But it rebuilt. Millions of years of evolution had nearly ended in a single campaign. Still, life had found a way back. That evening, Admiral Solis addressed the fleet. Her voice echoed through every ship. For 11,000 years, our ancestors protected hope. They preserved seeds they would never plant. They taught children about skies they would never see. They carried memories they never abandoned. She paused. Tomorrow, we stop remembering. We begin rebuilding. Across thousands of vessels, millions of people stood in silence. No applause followed. Some moments were simply too important for celebration. Outside, the blue-gray world turned slowly beneath the stars. Humanity had finally found home. Now came the harder task. Learning how to live there again. No one slept the night before the landing. Across thousands of ships, observation decks remained crowded. Families gathered beneath transparent domes, watching Earth rotate beneath them. Children pressed their hands against the glass while their grandparents silently stared at the world they had only known through stories. Every heartbeat carried the same question. What does home feel like? Admiral Mara Solis stood alone inside the command center of the Resolute Dawn. A single message blinked on her console. Landing corridor, clear. She read it twice before authorizing the operation. Begin Phase 1. Her words echoed across the fleet. Within minutes, dozens of engineering shuttles descended first. They deployed atmospheric sensors, emergency medical stations, portable fusion generators, and communication beacons. Autonomous drones scanned the surrounding valley for geological instability and hidden hazards. The mission was simple. Protect the future before celebrating the past. 3 hours later, the lead shuttle received permission to descend. Captain Noah Kieran sat in the cockpit, hands resting quietly on the controls. He had commanded rescue missions, combat patrols, deep space expeditions. Yet nothing compared to this flight. The shuttle entered Earth's atmosphere. A soft vibration spread through the hull. Moments later, another sound filled the cabin. Wind. Real wind flowing around the spacecraft. Everyone looked at each other. None of them had ever heard it outside a recording. Clouds surrounded the shuttle. Then they broke apart. Below stretched a broad valley bordered by weathered mountains. The scars of ancient destruction remained visible, but life had returned in scattered pockets. Thin rivers reflected the morning sunlight. Moss and hardy shrubs clung to rocky slopes. Small clusters of resilient trees stood where underground water still flowed. Earth was wounded. But Earth was alive. The landing struts touched the ground with a gentle thud. No one moved. Mission Control waited patiently. Finally, Admiral Solis smiled. The door. Hydraulic locks released. Fresh air rushed into the cabin. It carried unfamiliar scents. Cold stone. Moist soil. Wild plants. None of it had ever existed aboard a ship. For several seconds, every member of the landing team simply breathed. Captain Kieran stepped forward. His boot pressed into dark soil. He stopped immediately. Not because of protocol. Because the ground felt real. It yielded slightly beneath his weight. Tiny grains of earth clung to his boots. Gravity felt subtly different from artificial generators. A cool breeze touched his face. Sunlight warmed his shoulders. For the first time in 11,000 years, a human stood freely upon Earth. Behind him, one by one, the others descended. Some laughed. Some cried openly. Others knelt without saying a word. Dar. Eliana Voss slowly removed one glove and reached toward the ground. Her fingertips brushed the soil. She closed her eyes. It isn't a simulation, she whispered. It never was. The science teams immediately began their work. Portable laboratories analyzed groundwater. Atmospheric drones measured oxygen levels. Biologists cataloged surviving species. Every report carried unexpected hope. Earth had healed more than anyone dared imagine. The recovery was incomplete, but unmistakable. Nature had never stopped trying. Several kilometers away, drone cameras detected movement. Not hostile. Animals. Small four-legged creatures cautiously emerged from rocky cover, watching the newcomers from a distance. For a long moment, humans and Earth's wildlife simply observed one another. Neither understood the other. Yet both belonged to the same world. Later that afternoon, Dr. Voss opened a reinforced transport case. Inside rested a young oak sapling. The descendant of seeds protected through thousands of years of exile. The entire landing team gathered around. No speeches were prepared. No ceremony had been rehearsed. Captain Kieran picked up a small shovel. He dug into the soft ground beside a narrow stream. Dr. Voss gently lowered the sapling into the earth. Together, the team covered its roots with soil. Admiral Solis poured fresh water around its base. No monument could have carried greater meaning. Humanity had not returned to conquer. Humanity had returned to grow. That evening, as the sun slipped below the mountains, the first permanent beacon activated. Its signal spread into space. Not a military transmission. Not a declaration of victory. Only 6 simple words. Earth is inhabited by humanity once again. The message reached every ship in orbit. Across the fleet, millions of people stood in silence. Some embraced their families. Others looked toward the planet with tears in their eyes. For 11,000 years, they had carried memories of a home they had never seen. Now, those memories had become reality. The first sunrise on Earth changed everything. For generations, humanity had awakened beneath artificial lights that never truly rose or set. Every dawn aboard the Ark fleets had been programmed to the second. This morning was different. Golden light crept over the eastern mountains, slowly pushing away the night. Long shadows stretched across the valley, and a cool breeze carried the scent of damp soil and growing plants. No alarm announced the new day. Nature did. Hundreds of settlers stood outside their temporary shelters, watching in complete silence. Some had tears in their eyes. Others simply smiled. The first settlement was named New Dawn. Not because humanity wanted to forget the past. But because they wanted to build something worthy of it. Construction drones worked around the clock, raising modular homes, research laboratories, water purification stations, and solar arrays. Unlike the towering cities of old Earth, New Dawn was designed to grow with the land instead of replacing it. Every building left room for forests that had not yet returned. Dr. Eliana Voss spent every waking hour studying the recovering ecosystem. The valley held more surprises than anyone expected. Tiny flowering plants bloomed between ancient rocks. Insects pollinated them. Birds, small, cautious descendants of long-surviving species, nested among weathered cliffs. Life had endured against impossible odds. "We're not restoring Earth," she told her research team. "We're joining Earth's recovery." The distinction mattered. Far above the planet, diplomats gathered once again at the Grand Galactic Assembly. This time, the mood was very different. No accusations filled the chamber. No military threats echoed through the halls. Instead, representatives discussed trade, scientific cooperation, and ecological restoration. Many civilizations offered help. Some offered technology. Others volunteered specialists who had rebuilt worlds after natural disasters. Humanity accepted only one condition. Earth will never belong to anyone except those who protect it. The proposal passed without objection. The Stellar Compact also made its decision. Rather than challenge humanity's claim, its leaders issued a formal statement acknowledging the historical injustice uncovered in the ancient records. It did not erase the past. Nothing could. But it marked the first step toward a different future. Weeks turned into months. The settlement expanded carefully. Children born aboard the fleets learned to run across open fields instead of artificial corridors. Schools moved outdoors whenever weather allowed. Students studied living rivers instead of holograms. They climbed hills. Collected leaves. Watched clouds drift overhead. Simple experiences became unforgettable lessons. Captain Noah Kieran often walked beyond the settlement alone. One evening he climbed a rocky ridge overlooking the valley. Below him, lights from New Dawn glowed softly. Unlike the brilliant cities humanity once imagined rebuilding, these lights were modest. Respectful. They did not overpower the darkness. They lived beside it. He smiled. Maybe that was the lesson 11,000 years had taught them. Strength was not measured by how much land you claimed. It was measured by how carefully you cared for it. That same evening, Admiral Mara Solis received a message from the Assembly. It contained only one question. What comes next for humanity? She looked through the window toward Earth before answering. We rebuild. We learn. And when we travel among the stars again, we will carry a living world in our hearts instead of only its memory. She transmitted the reply. No further explanation was needed. As darkness settled across the valley, the wind rustled through the leaves of the young oak tree planted on humanity's first day home. Its roots had already begun reaching deeper into Earth's soil. Just like the people who planted it. The long exile was over. A new chapter had begun. 1 year after humanity's return, the valley no longer looked like a temporary settlement. The first modular shelters had become permanent homes built from local stone and advanced composite materials. Gardens stretched between the buildings. Streams flowed through carefully protected green corridors, and young forests had begun reclaiming the hillsides. Every tree planted represented a promise. Not to dominate Earth, but to deserve it. Children born during the first year of settlement knew nothing about life inside endless metal corridors. To them, the sound of birds at dawn was ordinary. Rain was ordinary. Mud on their boots was ordinary. Their parents smiled every time they complained about the weather. They had waited 11,000 years for the privilege of hearing those complaints. Dr. Eliana Voss stood beside the oak tree planted on humanity's first day back. It had nearly doubled in height. Its roots had taken hold. She placed a hand against its trunk and smiled. We made it, she whispered. Not because the work was finished, but because the future had finally begun. Captain Noah Kieran had become one of the leaders of Earth's restoration teams. Every expedition discovered something new. Ancient riverbeds filling with water again. Wildflowers spreading across valleys untouched for millennia. Animal populations growing stronger with each passing season. Earth was healing. Slowly. Patiently. Exactly as life always had. Far beyond the solar system, the Grand Galactic Assembly watched humanity with quiet respect. Many civilizations had expected anger. Others had expected revenge. Instead, they witnessed something they had never imagined. A species that had every reason to become an empire. Had chosen to become caretakers. Humanity rebuilt forests instead of fortresses. Research stations instead of battle stations. Hospitals before military bases. The lesson spread farther than any fleet ever could. True strength was measured not by the worlds you conquered, but by the worlds you restored. Years later, representatives from dozens of civilizations arrived on Earth by invitation. For many, it was their first visit to the legendary birthplace of humanity. Admiral Mara Solis, now older and with silver beginning to show in her hair, welcomed them personally. She led them to the highest ridge overlooking New Dawn. The city below blended into the landscape instead of replacing it. Solar towers stood beside forests. Homes overlooked rivers that ran clear once more. Children laughed in open fields. The visitors stood silently. One delegate finally asked. After everything your ancestors lost, why did you choose forgiveness? Solis looked toward the horizon where the sun slowly descended. We didn't forget. Her voice remained calm. We remember every name. Every sacrifice. Every generation that carried hope through the darkness. She paused before continuing. But if we had built our future only from hatred, then those who destroyed our home would have shaped us forever. We came back to prove they failed. That evening, the assembly unveiled a monument unlike any in the galaxy. It was not a weapon. Not a statue of soldiers. Not a list of victories. Instead, a circle of polished stone surrounded the first oak tree planted after humanity's return. At its center were engraved simple words in every known language. Home is not the place you inherit. It is the place you choose to protect. Visitors stood in silence as the wind moved gently through the leaves. As night fell, Captain Noah Kieran walked alone to the same ridge where he had watched the first sunrise a year earlier. Above him stretched a sky filled with stars. The same stars his ancestors had crossed. The same stars that had watched humanity wander for 11,000 years. Behind him, lights from New Dawn glowed softly. Ahead lay a future no one could fully imagine. His communicator chimed with a message from an exploration fleet preparing to leave the solar system. Destination, unknown regions. Mission, peaceful exploration. Kieran smiled. Humanity was ready to travel among the stars again. Not because they were searching for a home, but because they finally had one. He took one last look at Earth before turning back toward the city. The journey that had begun 11,000 years earlier had finally reached its end. And from that ending, a new beginning was born.